can see all these. And we're gonna do introductions here, so state your name and your affiliation. And if you have a town position, what that town position is. And then I'm gonna have Megan, because she can see everybody, call on people who are on Zoom to just introduce yourselves. So we don't have that awkward wait. So again, I'm Kevin Geiger, I'm the chief planner here, the Two Rivers Ottawa Regional Commission. We have joined with our partners to the west and south to put this on. And I'll let them introduce themselves, and so I'm gonna go around the room here.
Stephen True, I'm the planning director and zoning administrator for the town of Norwich, Vermont.
Excellent.
Eric Webb, Bethel Planning Commission.
Brian Pollock, I'm a regional planner here at Two Rivers Ottawa Regional Commission.
Megan Asbury, I'm also a regional planner here with Two Rivers. Harry, did you want to say hi?
Sure, Harry Faulkner, Two Rivers, Ottawa Regional Commission, and also Windsor Planning Commissioner.
Okay, so from the chat, Rutland, do you just want to give us a shout of who you got in your room?
Absolutely. So we have Devin Neary, Executive Director, Will Austin, Land Use Planner, Frank Nelson, Pollitt Planning Commission, and
self-appointed Noah's Ark.
and self-appointed of Noah's Ark, and Ann Reed, Town Manager in the town of Pittsburgh.
Thank you. Martha, do you want to go ahead?
Sure, Martha Harrison. I'm the planner with the Mount Regional Commission.
And Dana?
Dana Peterson, Rutland Town Planning Commission.
Bruce?
I'm in the town of Hartford.
Richard?
Richard Lancaster, Selectman, Town of Barnard.
Steve? I don't think we heard you, Steve, if you want to try again. You can also type in the chat if it's easier. Yeah, we didn't hear anything that time either. Bailey, you want to go ahead?
Bailey Gwynn in Bethel, looking to join the Development Review Board.
Awesome. And then we had Gregory, but I don't see him at the computer, so we can just move on. And then Steve is from Sudbury. Cool.
Okay,
On to you.
so then I'm going to try to go through here. Megan, just so you know, I've lost my note slide somehow. Probably.
Just put this one.
Oh, there we go. Good.
Just don't unclick that.
No, I don't know why I did that. Alrighty. So Megan is watching everybody on Zoom. I can see everybody in the room. So if anybody has a question at any point, raise your digital hand on Zoom in the room, just stop us, and we will do that. We won't hold questions till the end, just because I find it flows a little better if we're right on the subject. Going to go through. Again, we're going to talk about zoning and subdivision, both the parts of them, and then we're going to talk about process a little bit, especially making decisions. So if you're in a review body out there making a decision, talk about that a little bit. But if you want to take us down a side path a little bit, that's fine. We'll stay on track in terms of time. And so off we go. So again, we're talking about zoning and subdivision tonight. We're talking about land use regulations, bylaws. There are many other things. There are town plans, there are ordinances, which have to do with other authorities out there. Flood regulations technically are a form of zoning. They're enabled in the same part. So flood regulations do fall under this thing as well. And so hopefully we go to there. You can only get these things if you have a town plan, and town plans are where you set the foundation for your bylaws. They don't have to be specific, and in general, they should not be specific. So in a town plan, you wouldn't say, make a 5-acre district that doesn't allow motels usually. You'd say, make a district with large lots and think about commercial uses or something like that. That gives you all the room you need to then go down in more detail later on. But you need a town plan to start or amend the bylaw. You don't need a town plan to keep it going. So if for some reason you have zoning and subdivision and your town plan expires, the bylaws just keep functioning until you get a town plan going again. Why have land use regulations? I won't read the slides, you can all read that. I say it's the most effective and the least expensive form of local control. You know, if you want to keep somebody out of your flood zone, you can do all sorts of things, or you can just have bylaws that says can't go in flood zone. Pretty short and simple. Not having a bylaw is a choice. So for the towns out there that say, oh, we don't want to tell anybody what to do, that's perfectly fine. That is a choice. And you get to live with the consequences of that choice. Since you had the power to do otherwise. Zoning is by far, and subdivision by far are the most effective ways to do things, not Act 250. Act 250 only takes a certain few things out there and brings it under its wings. So it misses most about out there. Land development. Land development is defined in statute. You can then take things off of the plate in your bylaw by saying we don't mean such and such and such and such. But land development is pretty much anything you do on the land. It's changing a use, building the building, rebuilding the building, changing the use of the building, scraping the land, cutting down trees, building a road, chopping a parcel in half, drilling a well. Any of those things are defined as land development in the statute, and so you have to take them off the plate when you write your bylaw. We'll talk about that in just a second. Land use regulations for those of you who especially who work kind of in the trenches. Every now and then somebody will come out and say, this is a takings. And you get to say, no, it's not a takings. A takings is zoning is totally legal, it's constitutional, and you do get to tell people what to do with their land up to a certain point. You can't deprive them of all use of their property, but depriving them of just the thing that they wanted to do compared to the things that you let them do is not a takings. But you don't get free for all. You have to only do what you're able to do in Vermont, so-called Dillon's rule. And we'll talk a little bit about statutory limitations and prohibited effects, but that's the 4412 and 4413 are where most of that is found. Every now and then there's a weird part somewhere else, but that's where most of that is found. And there's been a lot of changes in statute in the last few years. Those kind of rule anyway. So if, for example, now anybody who allows a house also allows a duplex by law. If your bylaws don't say they get duplexes, they still get duplexes. You should update that just so that everybody remembers, oh, state laws overridden this, but you can't do things that are illegal. And duplexes are one. The administrative officer, sometimes called other things, often called zoning administrator. It's the same person. The statute calls them administrative officers. You can call them whatever you want to call them, but they are that person. They are enabled to do certain things, and they're largely a non-discretionary person. They're the person who, to me, and the only person who should be talking about permits. So when somebody comes and says, can I get a permit to do X and X? If you're not the zoning administrator, you don't answer that question. You send them to the ZA. And they're the best funnel for bringing in all the applications. All the things come into them and go out of them is kind of the cleanest way to make everything happen. That last bullet, first the bullet about enforcement, they're the people who do the enforcement. And that's not really a judgment call. They write the notice of alleged violation. Taking them to court is a different ballgame. That takes money and select board, okay, and that type of thing. But if somebody's doing a violation, it's a violation. It's not up to some group to decide if that's a violation or not. Of course, saying that, the notice of alleged violation can be appealed. because you could say, well, the ZA is out for lunch, and you can appeal that to the appeal body, we'll go over appeals later too. The last bullet there, we'll talk about a little bit, because I love that, and that's can be authorized to review and approve new development that would otherwise go to an AMP. Strangely, that is not in the powers of zoning administrators, which you would find in 4448. It is stuck over there in decisions like part 3 of 4464. So there's, when they made the statute, they kind of wired it funny a little bit. But we'll talk about that as well. These are the pieces of a bylaw. And I like to start bylaws right off the bat. The first part of the bylaw, almost once you kind of lay out the administrative stuff, is often up front in the bylaw. Often says, you know, you have a severability clause and an applicability clause and all that type of things. And you say here, there is a review body and there is an AO. But then once you start, I like to say, and these are all the things we're not regulating. So that if somebody's reading it from beginning to end, they can quickly hit that exempt and go, oh, I'm parking a travel trailer in my yard for less than a month, or whatever the thing is, or I have a construction sign, or I'm changing a light bulb, or I'm putting up a baby windmill, you know, not the real windmill, but like the 4-foot tall windmill that people put in their yards, or whatever the things are. And I tend to always write a de minimis clause when I'm writing exempt uses in there. So the ZA is enabled to go, yeah, that thing we don't care about. And it gives them that power. That is an act which is appealable. So if you go, well, and I always use the brontosaurus, which was up Thetford ways, which was, you know, like a 80-foot wooden construction. And you go, yeah, that's not dinky. That's like, you need a permit for that. Then you have permitted uses, which do get a permit. Some places call them by right, but it doesn't mean by right as in you don't have to talk to us. It's by right as in you're gonna get a permit to do that thing, but you do need to go get the permit. Which should be easy to get. I always tell people, especially folks who don't have zoning, I'm like, permits are like dog licenses. You walk in, you pay the $25 or whatever, you go, I'm doing everything according to the rules, leave. And you get a permit. So it should be very simple to get those things. Site plan review is a step that gives you approval to do certain things and then go get your permit. They are commonly used for commercial stuff. We'll talk about each of these things in a little more detail in a minute. And then conditional use are those things that maybe will work if we can put conditions on them. Subdivision, literally the subdividing of land, but it also relates to things you do as part of the subdivision process. Again, you can stick your zoning and subdivision in the same bylaw, and we call those unified bylaws. I suppose you could call them other things too, but in the statute, they're called unified law. Variances and waivers, very different things, but we'll talk about them. And plan unit, plan residential development, a special thing you can put in your bylaw. I tend to actually like to try to do that in baby versions under a waiver provision. But if we have PRD, PUD questions, we can deal with those when they come up. And so Megan, you're watching like people, you don't see any hands or whatever. Okay. So we're going to talk about site plan review. That thing on the right, 4416, is where it's enabled in Title 24. Those people who've dealt with me know I'm usually carrying around the statute book. Brian's got statute live over there in case we need it tonight. Because I've been doing this a long time, 36 years, something like that now. But the law has changed. Parts of my brain have forgotten things. I never read it right in the first place, you name it. And so I often crack the book and go, oh, what does it say? And so, for example, people often say, well, site plan review says I have to regulate landscaping and screening and lighting, traffic and circulation. And that's not true. It says you can regulate those things, And it says, and you can regulate anything else you want to under there. There's a wide enabling at the end, so you might have a site plan that only deals with landscape. Or only deals with something out there. The use is not up for debate. Your question?
Yeah, I do have a question. Have you seen examples of site plan review that have sort of novel characteristics? I mean, typically it's screening, landscaping, design. Any interesting ones?
I've seen interesting ones. Mainly what I see are bad standards.
Okay,
And so when you think about a standard in site plan review, you want a standard that somebody can deal with. And so, especially don't have a standard in your bylaw that says consider. Like, consider the effect of lighting on neighbors, because you go, that's not a standard. It doesn't say that extra lighting is good or bad. All it says is you have to scratch your chin and ponder, and you've considered the matter of lighting, which is not what you want. You want the applicant to demonstrate that they do not have an undue adverse effect on their neighbors due to lighting. Or you might say just, hey, here's the standard. You have to have fully shielded fixtures so that the light source cannot be seen from adjacent properties. Something that anybody can either straight go through or with a little common sense go through. I think more one of the esoteric ones I've seen is around landscaping requiring native species only.
okay,
So for example, so if somebody wants to put barberry out front, you go, no. Or especially not the invasive species, anything on the invasive species list. Things like that, probably, little odds and ends like that, I would say. You could certainly put under there. A common thing in more urban environments is to require the parking to not be in front of the building or to be minimal in front of the building, to put it at the side or really out back. So you don't have that standard suburbia sea of parking and then some building setback from the road, pull the buildings toward the road. Other things like that. Again, you can't do site plan review on single family houses. That's against rules. So if you're doing ridge line or stuff like that, and you're gonna regulate a house, you're doing it through conditional use. They get site plan review by the body or by the ZA, and to me, because you're not talking about the use and you're doing relatively non-discretionary things, that's the type of thing where I think sending it to just the ZA or the AO, especially if you have staff, is probably a good idea. Conditional use review.
You wanna
Yeah,
do Rutland's question?
yeah, what? Rutland, you have a question?
Yeah, is
I
that
can see it, so.
site plan review is single family housing is exempt from that.
Single family housing exempt, yes.
And is duplexing and stuff relative to any of the new state changes also exempt?
I'm not sure on that one. I think duplexes may also be exempt. I'm not sure if they've gone over and changed 4416, Brian.
Yeah, duplexes are also exempt.
So Brian, by the way, if you're ever in a trivia night, Brian is the person to have. I mean, besides, he's got the statute right in front of him, but that's, he's fair tonight. But if you want to talk about the Crimean War or you name it, Brian's
nice,
nice.
nice.
Just know that.
So what about other multifamily uses? Are they exempt as well?
Just one or two.
No, not
This one-
exempt. So you could run them through site plan review. And in fact, given some of the changes in the housing law a couple of years ago, where it says you have to allow them, you have to permit them. You can actually permit them through site plan review, but you can't do conditional use. Okay, conditional use, this is where the use is up for debate. So if you've got a bank in a commercial district, never run them through conditional use because you're not arguing about the bank. You're arguing about whether like the people can come in and drive out. Okay. Conditional uses are meant to give you that flexibility to go, oh, maybe that thing would work if we conditioned that. And there are 5 mandatory parts of the statute. These parts you have to do, and you can't fiddle with them. And the second part is really probably one of the ones that people really mess up. And so these are, first off, is you can't have an undue adverse effect on these. That's not adverse effect, that is undue adverse effect, which is a higher bar. What the heck does undue adverse effect mean? Nobody knows. Is the answer to that one. You'll find out if you go to court. Except in the so-called Creechy test, where we know on aesthetics, undue adverse effect means shocking and offensive to the average person. So it's not merely a little ugly or distasteful, it's shocking and offensive. So think about that in terms of lighting or something else out there. It can't be like, oh, that's a little off. No, it's gotta be bad.
An 80-foot brontosaurus.
An 80-foot brontosaurus, baby. And you are also enabled, just like you are on a site plan, to say, and anything else you want. My take on that is, and anything else you want does not mean you can go change these 5. It means besides these 5, anything else you want to add onto there. If you have site conditional use review and site plan review, which is common in bylaws for like almost all commercial uses, will often go through both. Stick them together in your bylaw, is my advice. You probably could just do that as a matter of procedure. But I advise towns to just literally stick them together, and so you say, down in your process part, you say, if you trigger conditional use review, all the site plan review standards automatically come over here or something. That way, do we have anybody out there who has a planning commission and a development review board?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
because typically site plan review and conditional use went to 2 different bodies. And that way you got to have 2 different decisions that might not look like each other at all. Which is a good way to drive people crazy, right? So my advice is don't do that. Stick them all in one review, give them all to one body. And other things can happen too, because then your warnings are gonna have to say, even if you have one body, a DRB doing both reviews, they have to say this is a conditional review, use review hearing and a site plan review hearing. Then they have to remember that and write 2 different decisions.
It's different decisions.
Yeah, because they're 2 separate, they're 2 different things. You would probably literally be writing the decision, maybe in order. And you could stick them together and just have them in one document.
Okay, yeah, but you have to treat them separately.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, and I know, Robin.
Yeah, that's another question.
Question, Robin.
Go ahead, Frank.
So what's the other group other than the DRB that would be doing the review that you're talking about, the potential conflicts in 2 groups?
CBA.
You both your planning commission and your development group, and your zoning board of adjustment.
CBA.
One, before they created AMPs, by statute, conditional use review went to one and site plan went to the other. And now that actually is, they've taken that part away of statute, so it doesn't say that. But in towns that still have both bodies, they typically are still doing the old way.
And if a town has moved to the model of having a DRB, then they assume all those quasi judicial functions for reviewing the applications.
Right, you
The
can't,
PC does not.
the PC just stops doing that. The only thing that, if you have both bodies, the only thing that you can't give to the PC are appeals of the zoning administrator and variances. Those have to go to the. advisory functions. Some towns have conservation commissions or design review boards or Lord knows what out there. Those are perfectly fine to have. Have them all you want. But they are advised. They do not get to create roadblocks. They should show up at the review body, which is not them, hearing with their comments. And the review body can take their comments under advisement and do with them what they want, but you can't say, you can't proceed to go unless the Conservation Commission says yes. That is not an allowable standard.
Question,
Yes.
are design advisory committees absolutely restricted to just historic districts, or is that just typical?
No, there are design review districts, and there are historic districts enabled under law. They both are kind of special.
Hmm.
In how you do them. And so I would be careful when you do one or the other and calling it that. You might want to actually create a different kind of critter that's not technically one of either, because they are kind of clear things. If you're going to have design review and design review standards, you have to have done certain studies, as well as historical review. You might want to just say like community character review or something.
And is there a municipality in either region that has these bodies? I mean, the design advisory committee.
Yeah, Woodstock does,
Anyone else?
That might be it for our region, actually.
yeah,
And
there
Hartford.
is a kind of design review in Chelsea and in Bradford that I know
Okay,
Hartford might have one.
Hartford,
White River might, but have like a downtown design review overlay or something.
Maybe.
okay, yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and I'm not, but while we're on design review for a second, I'm not gonna talk about form-based codes tonight. But they are a very different critter. Under zoning, you're unable to do them, they're more complex. The idea behind form-based codes is that you care about the form most of all. So think less about use and more about form. And I always use the McDonald's in Freeport, Maine, if you ever go there.
Rutland, you have another question?
Yeah, before you go, Frank, just a quick one. Kevin, how do architectural review committees fit in to this framework?
They're advisory.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just want to make that clear for folks. Frank,
That would be under the design advisory.
Yeah.
Umbrella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This came up during our last round of redoing our unified bylaws. And this was interesting because the DRB has a pretty broad stroke when you're considering conditional uses, etc.
Yeah.
And so, but the elements of the a design advisory committee or like function doesn't exist in our unified bylaws, but would be handy potentially for the DRB to have in place in certain circumstances. Could the DRB essentially be enabled to appoint or request the appointment of a design advisory committee to assist them on considering conditional uses, etc.?
Yeah.
They have that power to do that.
Yeah, it's widely, I would say it's widely enabled. The select board would actually create them. I don't think the DRB can create it. Your bylaws would need to have that in there too. I don't think you could create it outside of your bylaws allowing it. But, and it's a good way to go, hey, we're not the experts on this. We'd love to have some more expert people over here talking to us, but they can't be elevated to the supreme experts, the authority.
They're not legislative.
Hmm?
They're not legislative.
Right.
The select
Right,
board,
they're not.
the DRB would have to request the select board to have some assistance through this tool.
I would say, yeah.
Is
And they would
that-
get appointed.
Is that something that has gone on that you know of, or?
Mhm.
Yeah, we're in the towns where it exists, yeah.
And how would you plug that into a UBL?
I would have it down under either your site plan or your conditional use standards. And
Okay,
say, okay, you know, like in this district, we wanna make sure that your facades are correct or whatever. And, you know, the way we're gonna deal with that is we're gonna have you go over here. And, you know, the hard part is you gotta write a standard such that somebody can understand that. So you can't write a standard, or I wouldn't write a standard that says like, be harmonious with the town. Cause what's that? But you often see things around scale, around ornamentation, around orientation, around roof shape, you know, a variety of things. And this is where you start to kind of get over towards this form-based code, I would say a little bit. Because, and some places
Hybridized.
will even have color charts and stuff and say, you gotta use the colors on this sheet. You know, that type of stuff.
I'm also just gonna note that you're halfway through time.
I'm halfway through time.
It's 6:31.
Oh,
is
hey,
there a Vermont statute that addresses this? Expressing potentially limitations, et cetera, because you can go. Without definition, you know, the world's your oyster, you can go in any direction you want. With the advisory. And if it.
Yes.
With conditional use permitting, then, are there any state limitations or any guidelines regarding that? That DRBs can access?
It's in 4414. There's the section devoted to design review districts and historic preservation districts.
so those two in particular.
Yeah.
That's
But
all.
again, back under your conditional use and site plan, you're widely enabled to put other standards that, and so you might do, you know. Aesthetic or you name it, standards underneath there. Just write them so that anybody should be able to figure them out.
Mm.
Essentially, what we have broadly put in is something I think. Something that's consistent with the neighborhood ambiance.
Good.
And so that then becomes something that the DRB may want to drill in. So the DRB could be given the power by the select board to set up its own criteria for on a project by project basis. That's the key question.
Well, you'd have to write it in the bylaw. You can't.
You have to have
There's
it
no-
in UPL. So you have to
Yeah.
be specific as to what the what the DRB can do as far as limits are concerned when establishing a committee and utilizing the information gathered from that committee source.
Write that all in the bylaw. And be careful about, I'll use an example in Woodstock here. They had a provision that said basically, if you're familiar with the east end of Woodstock. Then they said, you had to basically, be, similar in shape and size to the surrounding buildings. And so if you happen to know the east end of Woodstock, you have Ace Hardware, the Pizza Chef building. And so you go, oh, so I gotta be 1-story flats, large square buildings? Because that's what you're telling me, and really you go, oh, that's not what we meant. So, look around the area when you're using those. So I'm gonna keep scrutiny here. Megan's gonna keep me on time. Subdivision, literally the dividing of land, but it is the things that go with the dividing of land. So most of us do not have the traditional suburban subdivisions that have a sidewalk or that type of thing, but you might get into the placement of lot lines. You might get into cut lines in the subdivision. So you might go, okay, and as part of that subdivision, we're also requiring you to show what trees you're going to cut. And that's part of what we're gonna look at is what are you doing inside here? And where you're gonna put your roads and what do your roads look like? How steep are your roads? How wide are your roads? That type of things. So, very much so. And it's a great place to think about, either a voluntary or a mandatory clustering. And I use the word clustering carefully because people come up with mental pictures that I don't mean. Because most of our towns, you have your own well and septic, and so you're really clustering on an acre. But you know, you could say, listen, if you're gonna chop up some great big farm, you can't put the houses all willy-nilly all over the field. You're gonna have to put them at the edge. And we have a variety of towns, in our region, Fairleigh and, Randolph, I would say, probably have pretty good provisions on that type of thing. If you're an Act 250, you know, you might be doing that anyways, but if you're a 5-lot subdivision, most of our typical zoning bylaws allow you to go plop 5 houses all around the middle of a field. And everybody hates that pretty much. Except somebody who only owns a square to draw pictures with. The towns do different things. A lot of our towns exempt certain things from subdivision. They exempt oftentimes annexations. I'm gonna stick 2 lots together. We don't care. Boundary line adjustments. My neighbor is gonna give me a little bit of the back piece. Okay, maybe again, you don't care, you're gonna have to put a box on that. Filing of plats for unsurveyed lots. A filing of plat does require a subdivision permit. Or require something. But you're not subdividing, all you're doing is putting the line in the map that everybody thinks is there, but there's never been a plat. Because you own to the Delano place, which is my house. And that's all the information as to where that line is. We think it's my garage in 3 feet, my neighbor thinks it's my garage. Sooner or later, somebody will actually put a line on that. But we don't need a permit to do that because nothing to really review, but you should still talk about it somehow. A lot of towns do minor major, and usually that affects the application material. So you're cutting off 1 lot or whatever. Maybe it's a faster, easier process. I know Versher actually, I think, because Greg's on there still, they treat minors just going through the zoning administrator and majors going to the review body. That's the type of thing you might think about doing. And again, if you have a history and go, oh, you know, we have that thing that always comes in and it's this type of stuff. It's the 1 lot subdivision on the corner and it's always kind of near the road, yada, yada, yada. Like that's always so easy. Why don't we stop having the review body look at and have just the ZA do it? It is a great way to protect natural resources. Once lots are cut up, the cow's out of the barn on a lot of things. This is just an example of districts. There, you can have any kind of district you kind of want to have. The stuff within the district is treated the same. So if you've got 2 sections of towns with forest, but you kind of want to do different stuff in one section than the other section, make 2 different forest districts. So you can have slightly different rules. You also can have overlay districts, which I don't have a slide on, you know, in case like, oh, we have a lake or something. Oh. You might actually be able to see this table, but typically, many of the older bylaws I worked on would have like a page or 2 by district about all the numbers and stuff. And what you can find is you can usually put that on 1 page where you have the uses and then the districts and whether they're allowed or not allowed. It is also handy because when you do that and you find, you know, you've got residential 1, residential 2, residential 3, residential 4, and the uses are exactly the same between them. You can go, well, the only thing we're changing is the lot size. Maybe that's not an important thing. Number 1, because these things are kind of all look like each other, or we can definitely do it in a matrix because it just looks the same. Uses, I would try not to go too crazy on uses. I have seen bylaws with literally 5 pages of uses, you know, out there. But think about the things you want and their impacts. And so, you know, an office is a lot like another service-based industry. So maybe you don't need to put your dental, you know, offices and eye care offices, and you just say office. Um, certain things have statutory protection out there. For example, home occupations have statutory protection. My advice to towns is always to permit home occupations so that they don't grow and grow and grow, and then all of a sudden they're not a home occupation anymore. And nobody told them by way of the permit, oh, by the way, you can't use more than 51% of the, you know, structure. Standards, oftentimes standards have like stuff like this, you know, minimums, maximums. I have a couple towns that are considering things like maximum setbacks. We have a lot of minimum setbacks to keep you off the road, but then maybe maximum setbacks are a good idea, so you're not going out in the middle of the woods and fields to pull you in towards the front a little bit. Height is less so. People used to worry about that for fire departments now. I hear that that's less of a concern out there. Certainly, our advice to lots of towns, if you have sewer and water, stop talking about number of units. Think about the size of the box. And if you go, okay, you know, we don't get to be above 5 stories and above 10,000 square foot footprint, we don't care how many units you put in that building. You're gonna have to go get a septic or a sewer permit from the sewer people, but have at it. There are some things now, of course, around parking where you're limited and other things by statute. There's parking. Lighting signs, in general, signs you gotta be careful about. Oftentimes, towns will do signs under sign ordinances because of their ephemeral nature. Cause you go, I got a sandwich board out front, oh, you violated the sign ordinance, take that down, they took it down, then they put it back up. Don't do that. 7 days secure, they take it out. You're not gonna take them to court. Whereas if you have an ordinance, you're like, you put your sandwich board out there again, ticket. Up you go, don't do that.
Do you have an example of a municipality in the region that does signs well?
I don't.
That's okay.
I would love.
It's not really an issue.
Do you guys in Rutland, do you have a place that does signs well?
We do not. We have
Okay.
examples of not good sign ordinances.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, yes, I have seen a one town I won't name where like when you put up the little 8x11 sheets listing real estate properties for sale, that they wanted to treat that as signs in your window.
Good lord.
You know, like, oh no, or you know, or you no parking sign. Like that's not really a sign, it's just a no parking thing.
Rutland, do you have a question?
Yeah, on the multi-story thing. We had a limitation of 2 stories because that was the length of the ladder that were.
Yes.
And so, mutual aid has larger ladder trucks coming in, but because we have land trust properties on the end of the town, we have underused sewage, so the prices of sewer fees are going up because of X number of factors. To be able to allow for expansion of the number of sewer users to the benefit of everything, the only way to do it is to do, instead of horizontal expansion, it would be vertical expansion, which means that they're allowing for additional stories. And the only way we did that is parking availability. And we also did a thing that you didn't mention, which was to make sure that the buildings complied with state fire code in those cases, which may mean sprinklers or modes of egress. Fire escapes. But then this comes also into the play with the design advisory, because once you start going a little bigger than everything around, it can go any which way. And the DRB, who would be reviewing this potentially as a conditional change, would not know what they're looking at with just simply a flat site plan.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was dovetailing all that questioning together, was because we do need to have room for more. This is more residential housing, of course, and we're limited according to the restrictions because of the.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. We do have at least two towns I know of, Bradford and Randolph, that in their more dense areas, they require 2 stories. You cannot build a 1-story building. So they're like, yep, you know, you're gonna use the space.
Nice.
There are other things. Their state building code is its own critter, separate from your bylaw. How to marry the two is a slight mystery to me, but you should know about it, especially the ZA should know about it. Just so when somebody comes in, they go, you know, you need a building permit for this, that's not me. So go over there and talk to the code people.
We have like 15 minutes left, okay?
Yep. Special cases, these are all things out there, I won't go into all, but all of them out there have some statutory protection out there, so if you get into one of these, and AOFBs in particular is changing yet again this year. But check your bylaws, because they may have legacy language in there.
AOFB's accessory on farm businesses are changing.
Yep, they'll change the statute on that again, mainly regarding an Act 250.
Okay.
But ADUs have changed over the years. You know, you name it. And ag and forestry, I know there was a bill to deal with the Supreme Court decision. I don't know if it passed or not. So we're gonna talk about decisions a little bit here quickly. And again, when you are one of those review bodies, the DRB, the Planning Commission or Board of Adjustment, when making a review, you're acting in a quasi judicial function. And the best way to me to think of it is you're the jury. And you're gonna hear evidence, then you're gonna go off and make a decision. And so think about that. You're gonna make a formal, precise, decisive decision. You can't make a wishy-washy decision. It's a decision. That's why we call it a decision. It's gotta have justification. We'll talk about that a little bit. But my advice is to kind of be formal in all those proceedings, even if you know everybody. Just that way, everybody is getting a fair shake. So if Susie, who everybody loves in town, and they always, you know, been to her house for their birthday, and Vinny from New Jersey is coming in trying to do something, treat them, behave the same around people, because that's what the Constitution requires. This is about Constitution, be thorough, be understandable. You should be able to vaporize everybody involved in the process and give all new people the decision, and they know what was in there. Statute enables you to use the minutes of the meeting. I highly say don't, because the minutes generally are not very specific. And I have seen a lot of review bodies, you know, somebody comes in and they go, yep. And like literally that was all they did. And so then later I have to kind of go, you know, next time around, you should actually look at the standard to make findings of fact. That type of thing. It's very good for people who are a little bit, you know, kind of rule bound, because that way everybody knows they're getting the same deal. Again, board members, especially for chairs, I tell them, ask your quiet people. Like literally go around the room, give 2 seconds of dead air to go, are you okay? Any questions? And who's ever looking at your standards, like, did they hit all the standards? Every standard we had to meet? We got good. And if you need more information, they don't have it, continue the hearing, that way you don't have to rewarn it. But you can only continue to a time and date certain. If you don't know, you're gonna close the hearing and order a new hearing. But just say, this isn't the final hearing, because that's when your 45-day clock starts. You can do site visits, there's no testimony at a site visit, don't do ex parte stuff. You're the jury, you don't go get to all meet at Pizza Hut and discuss the case, no. You don't get to meet in the coffee shop and talk to one of the applicants, no. Everything takes place in that room and only in the room, so that all parties are hearing the exact same piece of information. And that's why I really tell people, make sure you got it all down, because when you close the hearing and you go off to deliberate, there's no new information. You can't be like, oh, I forgot to ask about such and such. Nope. If you do that, you're opening up the hearing. Everything's in hand. Deliberations, you're not covered by open meeting law. It's not executive session, it's deliberations. Go off. I say always do it in private. You're not required to do it in private. But that way, if you always do it in private, when it's touchy, then people go, why are you going in private? And you go, because we always go in private. And nobody will answer, because they always go in private. What do you mean? And so just have that done. The toughest part of the decisions, I think, that are important are, it's Stephen, who's sitting next to me here. Stephen's the applicant. He comes in and he says, and the standard we're trying to meet is that the site is visually screened from adjacent properties, right? It doesn't have to be screened totally. And Stephen says, yep, you can't, with these bushes I'm proposing, you can't see it from the neighbors. And I have a standard and I've got some evidence, testimony, but I have not yet made that a fact. Stephen said something when I believe him and I go, you can't see it from adjacent properties. Now I'm taking the testimony and I'm making a finding of fact. And we do that real fast and we forget that we've done that thing. That's real important to go. Stephen said you can't see it. We find you that is true, you can't see it. That is a finding of fact. Now I've got a standard that says you're not supposed to be able to see it. We meet the standards because the facts all line up. It works really well because Brian hasn't showed up at the meeting and go, I can see it all over the place. Like it's right in my face. And then you go, oh, now I have to make a decision about what is true. But with non-contested testimony, we forget that part. So always think that you're doing that. And to me, that's probably the most critical thing I want to leave you with on decisions, because that's the finding of fact part. And ask, get an attorney when it gets, weird. Ask us about process. Any of the RPCs out there can help you with process. Typically before you're in the midst of things is nice. But you often see them coming and can go, okay, I got this hairy one coming. Let's just go over how to run a hearing again and do some other things. And this is appeals. When you get it wrong or they think you've got it wrong, appeals acts, which are not just issuing a permit, but an act. So the ZA says you don't need a permit to the applicant because you're such and such. Your brontosaurus is only 6 feet long instead of 80 feet long. Or you're in this district. And they go, no, they're not. They're in that other district. Any of those things are acts that are appealable to the DRB ZBA. DRB ZBA decisions are appealable to the environmental court. A little glitch of statute on here, just so you know, in terms of administration stuff. When you issue your decision on conditional use of site plan, those approvals are appealable. They have a 30-day appeal period. Oftentimes what happens is those bodies issue their approval, bing, they go over to the ZA, the ZA issues the permit, that permit has a 15-day appeal period. So it is easy for the permit to vest while the appeal can still go on about the thing that led to the permit. Because that's the way they wrote statute. My advice is for zoning administrators, never issue the decision until 15 days have gone by, and that way you never get that overlap. You're always in there. It's a bit of statute I'd love to fix. Who may appeal? Applicants and interested persons. Interested persons have a test. My advice to towns, unless you have your attorney there, is to try not to define if somebody's truly an interested person. Because if you say you're not an interested person, Joe, just shush. They go, I'm going to appeal your decision that I'm not an interested person, and now we're going off the court. And slowing things down anyways. Let the court settle down. By the way, in terms of fines, when you go to enforcement, the court fines people, not the town. The town sends you notice of violation that says, we're going to fine you, but the court actually issues the fines, because they can put you in jail if you don't pay the fine. They have the power.
Unfortunately, ZAs do not.
No, ZAs do not. ZAs also do not have power to enter onto property. I often see bylaws that say the ZA can enter on a property. Not true.
What about the driveway?
And you can, any public lands, yes, if you can see it, yeah. And you of course can look on Google Earth and other stuff like that. Health officers have authority to enter on the property, ZAs don't. Of course, the ZA has the authority to issue a notice of violation and go, I don't know what you're doing back there, but I heard it was wrong. Here's a notice of violation. You can show me it's not wrong by allowing me to enter onto your property. As a little side quirk, since I still have 3 minutes, ZAs don't have a lot of power except that notice of alleged violation, right? That can cloud title. Some people care about their title being clouded and some people don't. Some people, I'm never gonna sell my land, or who cares about this thing you gave me, and you're not taking me to court. Blah, 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 blah.
Does Roland have a question?
Does Roland have a question?
Yeah, upon entering property for the ZA, could the use of a drone be used and not be deemed as entering the property?
I wouldn't.
Yeah, that's sort of an ethical thing.
Yeah, I really would. The whole drone thing is gonna get weird because we have drones now. We never used to have those. I really would not do that.
I wonder if there's any precedent in case law about that would be worth looking up, because then it might apply to jurisdictions.
Yeah, there isn't that I know. There's certainly going to be with that. There's probably case law just around general privacy, because I can't drive my drone around your backyard, because I'd be infringing on your privacy. But it's something that we have the power now. We're gonna have to figure out what we can do with that power. But yeah, I wouldn't do that. But certainly, Google Earth is pretty good. The remote sensing stuff that's out there can be there. And the, if they're not gonna let you do it, again, my advice is say, well, I have some piece of information that says I got a violation out there. You got 7 days to fix this, or you can show me that I'm wrong. The one thing I do suggest to ZAs that potentially gives you a little more bite, is if somebody has a mortgage holders do not like cloud time. And so you can send them a courtesy copy of your notice of alleged violation, because you can find the mortgage holder in the land records. And so then the Bank of Alaska can go, Fred, I got this thing, and all of a sudden now that collateral I'm holding is not so hot because you just clouded my title. Fix this. The other thing you can do is send things to insurance agents and go, Fred built a road, our fire trucks can't get up the road. Fred, you're in violation of our driveway standard, and CC Fireman's Mutual, who can then call Fred, we're pulling your insurance unless you fix this thing. And so you can get other people to potentially be a thorn in their side if they're not going to be helpful.
That's good information.
That is right on the nose. Megan's gonna tell me you hit the hour. Again, Rutland's shop out there, our shop. We try to be good resources for the review bodies. If you see these things coming, let you call up your regional commission. If you want a little brush up, you want a little role play. You think like, wait, the standard is kind of crappy. Can you write us a better standard that we can put in here? All of those things we're all handy on doing. A lot of us will do them. I won't speak for Rutland, but we do a lot of that stuff free of charge. If it's a one-off, if it's we want to, have meetings with us and go over our bylaw and fix it all. No, that's a contract. But if it's just, we just want to review such and such a thing. Or give our bylaws a look to see if there's illegal stuff in there. We can often just do that and we whip through it and write you a letter. Anything last on your end, Deb?
One last question from our group.
Okay.
Sure.
The DRB training handbook and the zoning administrator handbook, I didn't see a DRB one, I see a zoning administrator one. But it would be great to have some advisory or training for DRB members. Especially that are coming at us more recent years. And also have that be a joint training session with planning commission and accentuate a cooperative working relationship between planning commissions and DRBs, so that because DRBs may have something that they want particularly addressed in the plan by the planning commission in the unified bylaws, etc. Like Paul has, doesn't want to change the value of people's properties by having something show up that alters their neighbors' property values, etc. And then that we tried to follow that through in the unified bylaws. But the one other thing, that's a suggestion, because what we have is under the deliberation with the DRB, is that statutory that they can go private in their deliberations?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Can they be hybrid meetings?
What, the deliberation part?
You said it doesn't fall underneath the open meeting law.
Right.
And I didn't recall, I was on the working group for the legislature since about this time last year, maybe a little longer, all the way through January on the open meeting law at the Secretary of State's office. And we didn't see where it wasn't even brought up that these boards can essentially go private because of the theme of it was inclusive. And ultimately we're concluding that the Americans with Disability Act essentially for disabled people would mean that all meetings would have to be inclusive to that degree, which means even people that aren't under the ADA. So because the ADA disabled would be the lowest common denominator and have to include everybody, including hearing assistants, potentially sign language people, all kinds of stuff. And the only exception that really falls under the open meeting law is a executive session. And
yeah, you have the same protections under deliberations in that they're not a public meeting. And so they can decide we're all gonna go meet at Fred's house after this meeting or next week or whenever. The important thing is you can't do that to the exclusion of somebody on the review body. You can't be like, well, we really don't like, what Brian brings to the table, so let's all meet at Fred's house, but not tell Brian. That would not be a good idea. He's great on trivia, but he's held, making a decision around stuff. Not a good idea. Yeah, but and so how they do that is it's enabled over in Title III, a different place of the law.
what people are gonna have to address, if they have legal assistance on a town by town basis, is that the Senate just had a bill to bring on board an ADA expert for the legislature. and because this may be overriding open meeting law, and so the inclusion factors of the ADA may blow up some previously held beliefs relative to things going private and not private. Relative.
Yeah, I mean, I could see if your review body said, well, we're gonna go meet at Fred's house and you had a person who needed mobility access and Fred's house was not ADA compliant, you could get yourself into a pickle and stuff like that.
Well, this comes into play with hybrid meetings and the inclusion factor of everybody being able to be equal.
Yeah.
And so that means you have to do the best you can under the ADA, which is federal, and it's a whole bunch of.
Yeah.
It's got more teeth than the open meeting law under the federal thing. So then this is where people who are on these boards who may be conducting themselves, certainly the planning commissions for some people were saying was just advisory, so therefore didn't have to do all the non-advisory under the open meeting law. Now all of a sudden, even though it doesn't say so, under the federal ADA may have to.
Oh, yeah.
In a broader sense, where advisory just goes away, period. Okay.
Yeah.
Federally. And so this is gonna change this, and you'll see probably in the next legislative session more relative to this, because they didn't even have anything at the legislature relative to the ADA compliance. The bill said to bring somebody forward. I'm going to the Secretary of State's office in the next week or two to find out what went through and didn't go through there. All right, so but this is something towns may have to be aware of now, because the ADA is in effect now.
Sure.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you.
Interesting.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thanks, everybody out there. We'll see you later.
Okay,
I'm gonna stop sharing.
stop recording.